The year was 1882. A young Serbian engineer stepped off a boat in New York City with 4 cents in his pocket, a poem he'd written, a letter of recommendation, and a brain that would eventually power the entire modern world. His name was Nikola Tesla. And nobody, absolutely nobody, remembers him the way he deserved. Not because his ideas failed. His ideas won. The electricity flowing through your walls right now, the alternating current that lights every city on Earth, that is Tesla's invention, his system, his genius. But the name stamped on history, not his. The fortune, not his. The glory, gone, taken, absorbed by men who understood something Tesla refused to learn, that the work is only half the game. Law 7 of Robert Greene's 48 Laws of Power cuts right through one of the most comforting lies we were ever told. We were told, work hard, do it yourself, earn it with your own hands, and the world will recognize you. We were told that sweat is its own reward. That honesty in labor is its own protection. Tesla believed that, completely, religiously, and he died alone, in a hotel room in Manhattan, nearly broke, his greatest patents stolen, his name absent from the inventions that made other men billionaires. Greene's Law 7 says this plainly: get others to do the work for you, but always take the credit. Now, before you flinch, before you call that cynical or ruthless or unfair, let's talk about what actually happens in the real world. Because the world doesn't run on fairness. It runs on perception. And perception is built not by who did the work, but by who signed their name to it. Thomas Edison understood this better than almost anyone in history. Edison, here's the thing about Edison. He was not the greatest inventor. He admitted it himself. He once said he had no need to be a mathematician because he could always hire one. That was his method. His genius wasn't technical. His genius was organizational. He built a laboratory full of brilliant minds, pointed them at problems, and then collected the results under his own name. He was a curator of talent who presented himself as its source. Was that dishonest? Maybe. Was it effective? Absolutely. Edison's name is carved into the foundation of modern civilization. Tesla's name? Most people have only recently started recognizing it, and largely because a car company chose to use it as a brand. Think about what that means. Tesla's actual invention powers the world. Edison's method of working powered Edison. Now let's bring this out of the 19th century, because some people hear these historical stories and think that was then. Let's talk about right now. Let's talk about the office you sit in, the team you work on, the project that launched last quarter. Who got the credit? Was it the person who stayed late running the numbers? Or was it the manager who walked into the boardroom and presented them with confidence? Was it the junior designer who sketched the original concept at midnight? Or was it the creative director who showed up, nodded approvingly, and put their name on the deck? This isn't a horror story. This is Tuesday. And the question Greene is asking you is not, is this fair? The question is, which role are you playing? Because right now, at this very moment, while you are buried in work, someone above you or beside you is circling, not out of malice necessarily, just out of understanding. They understand a rule you maybe haven't fully accepted yet. Credit is a resource. And like any resource, it flows toward whoever claims it. Peter Paul Rubens, the great Flemish painter, understood this with elegant precision. Late in his career, when demand for his paintings exploded, he didn't stretch himself thin trying to paint every canvas alone. He built a studio. He hired specialists, one painter for fabrics, one for backgrounds, one for architectural details. They worked simultaneously on multiple pieces. Rubens would move through the studio adding the final touches, the face, the defining strokes that carried his style. When important clients visited, he would quietly send all the painters home. The client would stand on the balcony watching Rubens alone, working at breathtaking speed across multiple canvases, and leave completely in awe of this seemingly superhuman artist. The work was collaborative. The genius was Rubens, and the paintings, still hanging in the world's greatest museums, still carrying one name. Now, this law has two edges, and you need to understand both. The first edge is offensive. Learn to leverage the work, the talent, the labor of others to amplify your own output and reputation. The second edge is defensive. Protect your own work fiercely, because if you don't, someone else will do to you exactly what was done to Tesla. Balboa discovered the route to the Incan Empire. He spent years, sacrificed everything, bled for that discovery. But he made one fatal mistake. He talked too soon. He shared the information before he had secured his position. And one of his own soldiers, Francisco Pizarro, had him beheaded for treason and then walked in and took everything Balboa had died to find. The jungle doesn't reward the worker. The jungle rewards the one who controls the narrative. Let's take a brutal look at the psychology behind why we fall into the worker trap. It's something behavioral psychologists call the effort heuristic. From the time we are children, we are graded on our homework. We are praised for studying late. We are conditioned to believe that the amount of effort we put into a task directly correlates to the value of that task. That is a spectacular lie. In the adult world, in the ruthless arena of capitalism and power, nobody cares how hard it was for you to build the engine. They only care who holds the keys. Let me introduce you to a concept that haunts every corporate office in the world today. It's called the curse of competence. You know this person. Maybe you are this person, the workhorse. The person who is so incredibly good at their job, so reliable, so efficient at clearing the bottleneck, that management absolutely relies on them. The workhorse thinks, because I am indispensable, I will be promoted. Because I do everything, I will be rewarded. What a tragic miscalculation. If you are indispensable at the bottom, why would they ever move you to the top? If you are the only one who knows how to run the complex spreadsheet, or write the flawless code, or handle the nightmare client, promoting you would be a disaster for them. They would lose their best engine. So what do? They keep you exactly where you are. They give you a 3% raise, an Employee of the Month plaque, and they promote the guy next to you, the one who doesn't do the heavy lifting, but who spends his time networking, presenting, and managing you. That guy read Law 7. You didn't. He got you to do the work, and he took the managerial credit. Now, a lot of people hear this, and their moral compass immediately spins out of control. They say, I don't want to be a parasite. I don't want to steal other people's hard work. But Greene isn't telling you to be a parasite. He is telling you to become an architect. There is a massive difference. A parasite contributes nothing. An architect, however, doesn't carry the bricks or pour the cement. But the building carries the architect's name because they provided the vision and organized the labor. Think about Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. It is a classic textbook application of this law. Wozniak was the engineering genius. He actually hand-wired the Apple I, soldering components in the garage, doing the agonizing microscopic labor. Jobs couldn't engineer a computer. Wozniak wanted to give the schematics away for free to a local computer club. Jobs saw the empire. Jobs took Wozniak's raw, brilliant labor, packaged it, marketed it, found the investors, and sold it to the world. Wozniak is a beloved, wealthy engineer. But Steve Jobs became a god of the modern era. Jobs used the genius of Wozniak to lay the foundation of the most valuable company on the planet. And whose name is synonymous with Apple? Who gets the credit for the digital revolution? The man who orchestrated the work, not the man who soldered the wires. This law requires checking your ego. Many are obsessed with doing everything to prove they are capable. But doing it all yourself is a severe limitation. Your energy is finite. If you insist on building with your own two hands, your empire will never grow larger than the reach of your own arms. If you want to scale your power, you must learn to leverage the energy, the intelligence, and the time of other people. You must hire the mathematician. You must build the studio like Rubens. But how do you protect yourself? How do you ensure you aren't the one being leveraged? Remember Balboa. The defensive side of Law 7 is absolute paranoia about your own intellectual property and your own leverage. In your office, there are vultures. These are the people who wait for you to finish the brutal research. And then they say, hey, just CC me on that report so I can take a look. Or let me present these slides to the boss since you're so busy. Never give away the final mile. The final mile is where the credit is captured. If you did the work, you must be the one to present it. If you compiled the data, you must be the one to draw the conclusion in front of the decision makers. You must watermark your effort. Make your work unusable without your direct translation. Be the sole key to the lock you built. When you hand over your labor fully packaged, you are begging a vulture to put their name on it. Establish a reputation. You collaborate, but your signature is written in blood. Let's look at Kahneman's halo effect. When a leader confidently presents a brilliant project, the audience unconsciously projects all the intelligence and hard work directly onto that presenter, completely ignoring the invisible army of workers who actually built it. The audience doesn't want to know about the army. It ruins the magic. They want to believe in the singular genius. They want to believe in Edison. They want to believe in Steve Jobs. They want to believe in Rubens. Your job is not to shatter their illusion. Your job is to stand exactly where the light hits. So, tomorrow morning, look at your to-do list. Look at the tasks that are draining your life. How many of them could be delegated? How many of them are you doing simply out of a false sense of pride? And more importantly, look at the projects that are about to cross the finish line. Who is holding the baton? Because if it isn't you, you are just paving the road for someone else's parade. But wait, there is a dangerous trap here. If you rely too heavily on others without bringing your own unique spark, you cross the line from architect to fraud. And the moment the world discovers you are empty, you cross the line from architect to fraud. And the moment the world discovers you are empty, they will tear you apart. Let's talk about the danger of the hollow crown. Many people misread Law 7. They think it means do nothing, steal everything. That is the quickest path to professional suicide. Look at the modern startup culture. Look at the cautionary tales of Silicon Valley. We've seen CEOs who wanted to be the next Steve Jobs. They wore the black turtlenecks, they stood on the stage, they took all the credit for the revolutionary technology their engineers were supposedly building. But there was one fatal flaw. They didn't understand the machine. When the pressure mounted, when the investors demanded answers, they couldn't translate the work because they were fundamentally incompetent. An architect knows the physics of the building. A fraud just points at a drawing. If you are going to put your name on the project, you must possess the ultimate veto power. You must be able to look at the work your team has done, dismantle it, find the flaws, and direct the rebuild. Your contribution is the standard of excellence. You provide the strategic vision that the workhorse is too close to the ground to see. This brings us to a fascinating psychological paradox. You might be asking yourself, if I am taking the credit, why would these brilliant people keep working for me? Won't they rebel? Won't they mutiny? This is where Daniel Kahneman's behavioral psychology perfectly explains the human condition. Kahneman wrote extensively about our relationship with risk. It's called loss aversion, and it is hardwired into the deepest parts of the human brain. The vast majority of human beings are terrified of the spotlight. The spotlight brings glory, yes, but it also brings the absolute crushing weight of accountability. If the project fails, the public doesn't blame the junior engineer, they blame the name on the door. Most people, even the most brilliant coders, designers, and strategists, would rather have a guaranteed paycheck, a quiet weekend, and absolute safety than risk their professional lives in the gladiator arena of public opinion. They want the security. You want the power. This is the transaction of Law 7. It is not theft. It is an exchange. You give them a protective umbrella. You give them the budget. You give them a quiet room to be brilliant in. You give them a bonus at the end of the year. And in return, you take the legacy. You stand in the crosshairs. If it fails, your head rolls. But if it succeeds, the crown goes on your head. Let's look at how the masters manage this delicate balance. Take George Washington. Washington is immortalized as the father of a nation, the ultimate military and political genius of the American Revolution. But historically, Washington was arguably a mediocre battlefield tactician. He lost more battles than he won. So why is he the legend? Because Washington was a master of Law 7. He knew his own limitations. So he surrounded himself with the greatest minds of his generation. He had Alexander Hamilton writing his most brilliant letters in economic policies. He had Baron von Steuben drilling his troops and designing his military structures. He had Thomas Jefferson drafting the philosophical justifications. Hamilton and Jefferson were infinitely smarter than Washington, but they were erratic, they were divisive, they lacked the unifying stoic aura that Washington possessed. Washington took their brilliant, fractured labor, absorbed it, and presented it to the world under one unified brand, his own. And the men who did the work, they accepted it. They needed him to be the figurehead because they knew the public would never unite behind them alone. This is the ultimate predator-prey dynamic, refined into high art. The predator doesn't always hunt with fangs. Sometimes, the predator hunts with structure. The workhorse is the prey, constantly running on the treadmill of effort equals reward, completely blinding themselves to the fact that their treadmill is powering the predator's house. So, how do you apply this tomorrow morning without becoming the villain? First, stop volunteering for the invisible labor. When a new initiative is launched in the boardroom, do not raise your hand to do the background data entry. Raise your hand to synthesize and present the final report. Second, learn to praise your team privately, but represent the team publicly. When you are behind closed doors, tell your junior analyst they are a genius. Give them the emotional validation their ego craves. But when you step into the executive meeting, use the word I strategically, or use the royal we while standing alone at the front of the room. Third, build your own Rubens studio. Identify the people around you who love to be in the weeds, the perfectionists, the obsessives. Feed them problems to solve. Give them the resources they need. Become the curator of their talent. Let me leave you with one final, sobering thought about the nature of history. History is incredibly lazy. The history books, the corporate archives, the memories of your industry. They do not have the space to record the names of the 10,000 men who carried the stones to build the pyramids. They only have the space and the attention span for one name, the pharaoh. We live in a world overflowing with information, noise, and forgotten labor. The world desperately wants to simplify the narrative. It wants a singular hero. It wants a singular villain. It wants one face to put on the poster. You can either be the hands that build the stage, or you can be the face on the poster. Do not let your brilliance die in a cubicle. Do not wait for the world to fairly distribute the credit, because the world is entirely indifferent to fairness. Gather the talent, architect the vision, let them sweat over the details, and when the curtain rises, step into the light and take the bow.